The Canadian government is making a grave mistake thinking that the Canadian people are stupid and not realizing that they are intentionally wrecking our economy, wrecking our country. The numbers do not lie. From 1947 to 2015, Canada allowed an average of 0.5% of the population in through immigration. 0.5%. We saw steady economic growth, cultural consistency. It was the agreed upon number. All of a sudden, 2015, that number jumps from 0.5% to 1.3%, a massive jump, more than double, about 160%, 1.3. We saw the economy start to slow up. You look in terms of GDP per capita, we are on par with the United States until 2015. This is considered by most economists to be the best measure of how your average citizen is doing. We were about on par with the United States. Then suddenly Trudeau gets elected. He ups the immigration numbers from 0.5% of our population a year to 1.3% of the population. A huge jump that focused on GDP, simply gross domestic product, without considering GDP per capita. The skill of the immigrants coming in went down substantially. The standards, which had been world-class in Canada up until 2015, were suddenly lowered in order to get higher sheer numbers up. This WF Davos way of thinking that you should bring as many immigrants in as possible if your birth rate is lowering as it was in Canada, not to attempt to incentivize people having more kids, but rather to bring immigrants in. Instead, we saw some major hurt to the economy. All of a sudden, post-pandemic 2020, with Mark Carney as a senior economic advisor, this alleged economic expert, they jumped from 1.3 to 3%. That's right, 3% average population growth from post-pandemic 2021 on. This is unheard of. The historically, the only comps to such an extreme jump from the Canadian government are Lebanon, Argentina, both of whom wound up in civil war. It is unsustainable. It's the equivalent of Canada adding a Vancouver, British Columbia every 4 years. That entire province, from India, from the Middle East, from places with completely different cultures than Canadian culture. Many people coming from the Middle East, where these countries are Sharia law countries. You bring your feminism, your LGBTQ, your free speech to these countries. It simply does not exist. Huge numbers pouring into the country now for the past 5 years. We know definitively, don't let the Liberals gaslight you, lie to you. We know definitively, and they knew. There's even Mark Carney on camera talking about how bringing in huge numbers of economic immigrants hurts the native population. They knew this was going to happen. We currently have a 22% youth male unemployment rate. Since Trudeau was elected in 2015, both housing and rental prices have absolutely skyrocketed. The average American citizen in 2025 per hour of work generates about $100. In Canada, it's about $60. We are 80% behind the United States, when in 2015 we were about equal with them. GDP per capita growth on an annual basis over the past 10 years. In the United States, it has been 2% a year. 2% a year. The United States keeping a very strong GDP per capita growth, keeping a reasonable amount of immigrants coming into the country, whereas Canada, in total, over the past decade, this is not per year, this is in total, the GDP per capita growth, considered the best measure of how your average citizen is doing, is 0.2% in the past decade. Two biggest reasons, as I said, of course, the immigration, unprecedented to bring in 3% of your population on an annual basis. They'll call you a racist, a xenophobe, every ist in the book. It is facts. It is facts that this is damaging to our economy, and it's never been done before. And then, of course, there are these non-stop green initiatives, not allowing Canada to take advantage of our incredible opportunities, our natural resources that are the envy of the world, whether it be oil, whether it be LNG, whether it be potash, because of so-called green reasons, when realistically, the reason is because the Liberal Party of Canada cannot profit off of it. Mark Carney does not profit from exporting our LNG. If it were really about green initiatives, we'd be exporting LNG to Germany, to China, to Japan, where Olaf Scholz and others are absolutely begging for it. It's 50% cleaner than coal, but Mark Carney and his buddies at Brookfield Asset Management can't make money off it. It's truly sick. Brookfield, since Carney was elected, is up about 45%. He owns over 600 stocks, 90% of which are based in the United States of America. This man is not looking out for the best interests of Canada. When you combine these green initiatives alongside the 3% economic growth, there is no other way to interpret what Carney and the Liberal Party of Canada are doing than intentionally damaging the Canadian economy so that they can loot the country and get rich while the Canadian middle and lower classes continue to get poor. This isn't a debate. This is why they immediately always go to name calling, because when you actually lay out the economic data and the indisputable fact of the number of people coming into the country, there's no argument. 3% growth in immigration per year. Every economist knows that that's going to damage your economy. Yet the Canadian government continues to insist on it because it gets Mark Carney and his buddies at Brookfield, who own billions of dollars worth of both rental and housing in Canada, rich as hell. Basic supply and demand. You flood the zone with supply, which is exactly what the Canadian government has done by allowing unprecedented immigration. Prices are going to go up. It's why standard of living continues to go down in this country, while over 2 million Canadians are using food banks on an annual basis. It's sick, and it's not a mistake. It's being done intentionally. Carney has been an economist for the entirety of his life. He knows this data very well. He knows that the migration numbers are not sustainable for an economy. They're sending Canada the way of Venezuela. And he's well aware of this fact, but the simple fact is this man does not care. Spent the entirety of his adult life outside of Canada. In his book Values, he talks about his respect for Marx. He tries to have this veneer of friendliness and wokeness, but behind it all, he's trying to shut Canadians' free speech down with Bill C-8, Bill C-9, flood the zone with immigrants. Canada is the first post-national state. He signed on to all Trudeau's woke utopian ideology. If anything, he's expediting it in Canada. If we don't stand up and stand up now, this beautiful country is done for, which is why I've started the Fight for Canada Party. Paperwork's been submitted. It takes about 30 to 60 days, they say, to hear back. Keep you guys updated as soon as I hear. We'll add weight to the criticism, because what's going on, we are seeing the straight up looting and intentional destruction of our beautiful country by these far left zealots that need to be stopped. The intentional destruction of our economy. Such incredible opportunities in Canada, the second largest landmass in the world. Natural resources that are the envy of the world, and this needs to stop, and it can be turned around, but it needs to be stopped now. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, donate, grab some gear. Really appreciate everybody who supports. Canadian patriots need to stand up.